Modern American Canasta presents round 2 of our Can You Canasta challenge. Have you finished round 1? We went back to the basics for round 1, and as each round continues, the level of difficulty on rule and strategy questions will increase. At any time, if you need more time, simply press pause and then resume when you're ready for the answer or the next question. Modern American Canasta, the complete guide, written by Dara and Donna Miller Small, is available on Modern American Canasta. We invite you to check out our book as well as join us on Facebook on our group, Modern American Canasta. We aim to be your Canasta hotline. Let's get started. Question 1. When can I use wild cards with aces? The 3 options are: wild cards may be added anytime when opening, or when opening but not when picking the pack with an ace to open. And the answer is when opening but not when picking the pack with an ace to open. Question 2. The same question, but this time regarding sevens. When can I use wild cards with sevens? Can they be added at any time? Can you never use a wild card with sevens? Can they be added anytime when opening? Or same as aces, when opening but not when picking the pack with a 7 on top to open? The answer to number 2 is never. Wild cards can never be used with sevens. Question 3. When picking the pack to open, which of the following statements are true? The top card never counts for points or to satisfy the pure meld requirement. Is that true or false? What about the top card is counted if a 4th card is added? Next, the other cards are only counted if there are 3 or more cards melded in addition to the top card. The other cards are only counted if a wild card is added. The meld created from picking the pack is never a pure meld. And finally, the meld created from picking the pack is pure if 3 cards from my hand are melded. Whenever you're ready, we'll move on to the answers. So the statements that are true: the top card never counts for points or to satisfy the pure meld requirement. It's also true that the other cards are only counted if there are 3 or more cards melded in addition to the top card. And finally, a meld created from picking the pack is pure if you add 3 matching cards from your hand. The false statements are X'd out in red. The top card is counted if a 4th card is added is not true, since the top card never counts. The other cards are counted only if a wild card. It could be a wild card or a natural card for the other cards to be counted. And finally, it's false that the meld created is never pure, because if you add 3 natural cards, you have created a pure meld. If you have any further questions on these, feel free to post in our Facebook group. Question 4. Can you open by closing a canasta? Is it no, or yes if you have 7 identical number or picture cards in hand with no wild cards? This is known as a splash, which satisfies the requirement for both a pure meld and any required point count. Additionally, a splash can be a wildcard canasta when a player can meld any combination of 7 twos and jokers. Or is it C, which includes the answer to B, as well as you can pick the pack to open with a splash? Do you think it's A, B, or C? If your answer was B, you're correct. A splash must come from all hands in cards in your hand. You cannot pick the pack, and you cannot use wild cards unless we're talking about a wild card canasta. We're halfway through. Question 5. Which statements are true about special hands? You can use the same number or picture card in more than one grouping. There is only one special hand you can use a 3. The wild cards do not need to match in a grouping for a special hand. All special hands permit wild cards. Dead cards can be used in a special hand. And the zip code is the most commonly made special hand. We'll pause a minute to let you read those over and then go on to the answers. So the true statements here are there is only one special hand that you can use a 3, and dead cards can be used in a special hand. The fact that zip codes are the most commonly made is something that's our opinion and experience. When writing the book, most players we spoke to said the special hand is most commonly made, and they believe that the value of 2,500 should be lowered, or there should be an agreement by house rules. In our book, we created the value for our special hand sheet at 1,500 points, since we believe Canasta is a partnership game, and having the zip code at 2,500 is too high of a score. The false statements here are you can use the same number or picture card. That is not true for a special hand. In a special hand, wild cards do need to match. So if a hand allows wild cards, if you're using a 2, the other wild cards must be 2. If you're using a joker, the other wild cards must be joker. If a hand, such as a zip code, is 4-3-3-2-2, you can have jokers as one and twos as another, but you cannot repeat jokers and twos in different groupings. Question 6. How many cards must I have in hand after opening? Is it A, at any time you only need one discard and no cards in hand? B, up until the turn card you only need one to discard? C, after the turn card you need a discard and a card in hand? Or D, throughout the game you can meld all of your cards and don't need a discard? The correct answers are B and C. Up until the turn card, you only need one card to discard. After the turn card, you need a discard and a card in hand. There is no exception. You must always have a card to discard. Now we're on question 7. How many turns will I get after the turn card? Is it always 2? Is it usually 2, with the answer depending on how many 3s are on the table and in the stock? Is it usually 2, depending on if someone picks the pack or goes out, or otherwise end the round? The answer are usually 2 for both of those reasons. A great rule of thumb is to look at how many 3s are on the table when you're getting closer and you haven't opened yet and you have extra aces or 7s in hand. Don't rely that you'll have 2 more turns if the other team may go out, end the round, get a special, and if there's not that many 3s, you might lose some picks since they're in the card stock after the turn card. These are some considerations and definitely great strategy to incorporate in your game. Question 8. When and how can a player communicate with their partner? Canasta is a partnership game, but what are you allowed to do? Can you ask your partner if they have aces or 7s in hand? Can you ask to go out one time per round after melding? Can you ask to go out one time per round before melding? Can the partner that is melding instruct their partner where to add wildcards to meld? And finally, can you use a strategy called signaling and discard aces and 7s to signal you have 2 or more of these cards in hand, more than 2 of these cards in hand? Answer 8. The false statements here are you can ask your partner if you have aces and 7s in hand. That is not true. You cannot speak to your partner verbally about that. Can you ask to go out after melding? That is also false. It is true that you can ask to go out one time per round, but it must be before adding any cards to the table. Next, it is true that a partner can instruct their partner where to add their wild cards to melds. So to further explain this, if I am adding 2 wild cards to a meld of 5 kings, and I want my partner to close the kings, I can ask them to please put the wild cards on the kings rather than on another meld, rather than putting one on 5 5s and one on 5 4s. I can instruct them where to put my wild cards. The person that is putting the cards down cannot tell their partner where they think their cards should go. Next, partners can use signaling, which lets the other partner know that they have 2 of these cards in hand. So if I put an ace on the pile, if I discard an ace, if my partner knows I signal, That often means that I have two aces in hand. However, signaling is not a science, it's a strategy, and there are many reasons for what people call false signals. We go into this in many details in the book. It's a great section. Two more questions. Question 9. If I mismeld, what happens? Nothing if I was looking at my cards face down so no one could see them. When you put them face down, so only you see them as you take them out of your hand or out of your rack. If you put them face up, 10 points are added to your required opening point count. And if you put them face up, your partner can then not open with pure aces, wild cards, or sevens. If you had aces, wild cards, or sevens in your cards when you were mismelding. You ready for the answer? All of these are true. If your cards are face down, there's no penalty added, since the reason for the penalty is to prevent people from giving out information to each other about their cards. If they're face up, 10 points are added. And if they're face up and you had aces, wild cards, or sevens in them, then your partner cannot open with pure aces, a wild card meld, or a sevens meld. The person who mismelded can open with those. However, the 10 points will be added to their required point count. And we're on to the last question of this round. True or false? A player can remind their partners to replace threes, and a player can remind their partner to take the talon. The answer to both of these are false. Other than the communication that we discussed previously in this round, there is no communication verbally or other ways between partners. So you cannot remind your partner to replace threes, and you cannot remind your partner to take the talon. However, there are some house rules which differ. So we have a notes page in the back of the book, and you could take notes and reminders for how you play with different groups to make sure you're all on the same page. We have a whole chapter on house rules, so it's a great starting point to discuss these before sitting down to play. Congratulations! How'd you do on round 2? As we said, each round will continue to increase in difficulty to help you improve your understanding of the game for both rules and strategy. These videos are created to accompany our book, Modern American Canasta, The Complete Guide, which is available on modernamericancanasta.com. As you could see, our book meets you where you are on your journey from either learning your game or improving your strategy. We thank you for your support of our small women-owned business. Thanks for joining us, and we aim to be your Canasta hotline. We're looking forward to connecting with you, and there's plenty of ways to stay connected. If you're on social media, we invite you to join us on our Facebook group, Modern American Canasta. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, the same name with the @ symbol before it, as well as Instagram, and we just joined Threads. If you play Mahjong, we invite you to facebook.com groups Mahjong Community. We hope you have a great time taking part in these rounds and testing your knowledge, and we invite you to share these with friends. Thanks for joining us, and we hope your day is special. Have a great one.